Well, hello there guys. In this video, we'll be setting up a Snikket XMPP server. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with Snikket, Snikket is basically this turnkey solution of setting up your own XMPP server. It doesn't require many configurations, so it's very easy and the recommended way for beginners to set up their own XMPP server. It's basically the Swiss Army knife equivalent of an XMPP server, so it's very easy to set up. Now, before we start setting up Snikket, I would like to tell you a couple of prerequisites which are required for this tutorial. First of all, you're going to need a domain name. So for those of you who don't know what a domain name is, it's basically this thing right here. So snikket.org is a domain name. So you can register any domain name, for example, yourdomain.org, and then your Jabber IDs would be user at domainname.org or yourdomain.org. Now, apart from a domain name, you're also going to need a VPS, a virtual private server. Now, for a virtual private server, I would recommend that you go for Vultr. They start at $6 a month, so that's like €5 and a couple of cents. And they have tons of locations to choose from. You can choose from North America, South America, Europe, Asia, Australia. And also, it offers Ubuntu, which is what we'll be using for this tutorial. The reason behind choosing Ubuntu as a Linux distro is because it's very universal. Almost every VPS provider can provide you with Ubuntu, and it's going to be quite simple to set it up. Now, if you don't want to use a VPS, yes, you can use a Raspberry Pi or a simple computer inside of your home. It should work perfectly fine. In fact, in this video, we'll be using a Proxmox virtual machine loaded with Ubuntu. Now, your server doesn't need to be very beefy. It could have just as little as 1 GB of RAM. Even less would work, I think. Also, you can use Angela as a VPS provider or as a domain name registrar. I would definitely recommend Angela's domain name registrar services. They're very good, and of course, they're privacy friendly. Now, if you don't want to pay for a domain name, you can of course go with Freenom. Just type a domain and it offers you a couple of TLDs. So for example, .tk, .ml, .gk, .cf, and .gq. These are free for 1 year. And you can just add it to your cart, for example, and then just check out. And that's how simple it is. Also, I would like to mention there's a free way of getting a cloud VPS server, and that's possible via Google Cloud Platform. Now, I've used it, and I believe it gives you 768 megabytes of RAM with 1 core, which I would say is more than enough for what we're doing here. And there's this very nice tutorial here on Stack Overflow, which shows you how to do it step by step. So I'll definitely link it down below. So for those of you who don't want to pay for Vultr or something, you can of course go with Google Cloud Platform and just choose Ubuntu 20.0 for LTS. Now, with that being said, let's get started and set up our own XMPP server. So to start off here, I would be setting up my virtual machine inside of Proxmox and load it with Ubuntu 20.04. Now, if you're using a VPS here, I can guarantee you that you can skip this part and just look at the timestamps in the video description. So first things first, we're going to need to download the Ubuntu server ISO. You can go into download here on ubuntu.com, get Ubuntu server, and just choose option 2, manual server installation, and it should start downloading the Ubuntu 20.04 ISO. And once the download is finished, we can just hit upload and select the file, give it a file name, and finish our upload. As you can see, mine is still downloading, so I'll be back once it's done and start creating a virtual machine. So, as you can see, the upload just finished. I finished downloading Ubuntu server and I just hit upload here and select the file and uploaded it to Proxmox. Now we're going to start by creating a virtual machine. I would name it Snikket. We'll go next, and in the OS screen here, we'll choose Ubuntu 20.04 server. We'll hit next, and here it's the same. And we'll select for the disk size. Now this is completely personal preference. I would choose 35 gigabytes for this case. You can go with anything lower, it's completely fine. For the cores, I'll choose 2 cores, and the memory, I'll give it 1024 or 1 gigs of RAM. And for the network, everything's same. We'll just hit finish and our VM should be created. And we're going to go over installing Ubuntu 20.04 after the VM is finished. So it took a couple of minutes here to start Ubuntu here. So here we can just choose our language. So I'll just hit enter here on English. As for the layout and variant, it's not actually English keyboard. If I just go into so I'm using the Spanish keyboard here. We'll hit just done here, it should wait, and it gives us an IP address. That's perfectly fine here for me, and we will be setting up a static IP address later, so that's fine. As for the proxy, I don't have a proxy, so I'll just do done. The mirror address is same, and I would like it to use the entire disk. Once again, it's a virtual machine, so I don't care whatever it does with the disk. You can of course encrypt it if you like, but I won't be doing that. Everything looks fine. We'll just hit done and we'll do continue. Now give yourself a name. So I'll just do clock. Your server's name, which is going to be Snikket. Pick a username, which is going to be clock. Pick a strong and complicated password. I'll just do that. I'll need to confirm my password. We'll do that and hit done. Now, Ubuntu Advantage token, I don't have that, so I'll just do done and install OpenSSH server. That's very important. And you can of course import SSH identity, but I don't want to do that. I will just log in with the password. We'll hit done, and here it gives us a couple of things which we can install if we would like, but I wouldn't do that. Of course, I would recommend that to facilitate yourself, you install Docker here, but I'm assuming that most of you have got a VPS running, you won't have Docker installed already. So that's why I won't be checking that here, and we will be installing it separately. Just do done here and wait for it to install. I'll be back once it's installed and we'll boot into Ubuntu server and SSH into it. So our Ubuntu installation went perfectly fine, and here we are inside of Ubuntu. Now I did a couple of things which I would recommend that you all do, and that one is assigning a static IP address to our Ubuntu server. Now how do you do that? Well, you need to just do a vim/etc, and it's called a netplan, and here is the configuration file. And here you just need to make sure that the DHCP4 is set to no. The addresses are going to be whatever static IP address you want to give to your server. So in my case, I'll just give it 192.168.1.71 with a /24 CIDR for specifying the net mask. Now, the gateway 4 is going to be, of course, your router's IP address. And next you have your name servers. For most of you, you're probably going to go with 8.8.8.8 for Google's DNS servers, but since I have my personal DNS server hosted in my home, so I just specified its IP, and the version is 2. And then, you can just do that, and now you can do sudo netplan apply, and that should be basically it. Now, if we do like this, there we go, our IP address is this, and we can of course log into it using OpenSSH. So if I just do SSH, and we would just type in clock at 192.168.1.71, we'll do yes, and we need to enter clock's password, which we entered, and here we are inside of Ubuntu. Alright, so now that we are SSH'd into the server and Ubuntu server has installed fine, what we could do is we can run the following command to update our packages to the latest version. And I actually just ran this here, so as you can see, everything has been upgraded. Now we can just open our browser here and go to Snikket's quick start guide. You can just go into server and go into install guide. And here it tells us the first thing is about DNS. We need to set up a couple of DNS records. Now for this, you just want to log in to whatever domain name registrar you used. If you used freenom, you would go to freenom.com. If you used Angela, you would go to Angela's website, and you will be editing these DNS records. Now, I'm actually using DESEC, and what I did here was I basically added an A record, which is an IPv4 address, and I just gave my public IPv4 address. Now, of course, I'll be blurring it out for privacy reasons, and yeah, that's basically what I did. Now, the next thing we need to do is that, as it mentions here, we need to open a couple of required ports. And these are the ports which we need to open. Now, if you're on your home network locally, you would need to open these inside of your router. Essentially, you'll need to forward these ports from your router to your virtual machine or your Raspberry Pi or whatever you're using. So you need to know the static IP address of the machine, and you'll just forward these ports. Now, this depends on your router's model. You might need to consult your ISP to tell you a couple of things, but otherwise it's mainly just labeled NAT, port forwarding, or something similar, and you just need to forward these ports. Now, if you're using a VPS, what you would do is here inside of our machine as well, you would need to do it like even on a VPS or inside of your home as well. We need to, because Ubuntu comes equipped with a firewall. So what we could do is we can do sudo ufallow, and we can do 80/TCP. You would do the same for 443. Now this one is TCP plus UDP, so I can just do 3478 to 3479. So the colon is basically to specify a range. We'll hit enter. So we actually need to specify TCP. That's done. So now that we have forwarded or opened ports, second thing is getting Docker installed. Now it links to installing Docker here, as you can see. So we'll just hit our operating system here, which is Ubuntu in our case. We can go into Docker's documentation, and as you can see, we need to add the Docker's repository. So we'll just paste the command, and all these packages are installed. We'll once again add Docker's GPG key, and that's done. Next thing would be this, and it's just very simple, honestly. You just don't need to do anything. Now we'll do sudo apt update, and you can see here Docker's repo has been added, and we'll do sudo apt install docker-ce docker-ce-cli and container d.io. We'll hit enter, and that should install all of these packages. So the next thing is we need to install Docker Compose. So we can just go here. The link is provided in Snikket, and we can just go and install Compose and select Linux here, and we can just copy and paste this command. So we'll just wait a little bit, and we can do this here. And optionally, you can install the command completion, so you can press tab, so you would do docker-compose, and now here you can press tab and get all of these options, but it's not necessary. And next, we can just prepare for Snikket. So first things first, we need to make a directory. Now this will be everything with sudo, so I'll just do sudo superuser, and we'll just do cd/etc, and we'll do a make directory Snikket. We'll cd into it, And next we need to download our docker compose.yaml. So we can just copy this, paste this here, and once that's done, we can create a file. So that would be vim snikket.conf, and we can just paste this file here. Now, here you would need to enter your subdomain. So for me, it's going to be jabber.gq and chat.jabber.gq, which is a domain name which I'll be using for this example, as you can see here. The next thing would be an admin email, so you can just enter your email here. Since this is purely for demonstration purposes, I'll just enter a wrong email, so jabber.gq. So once that's done, we can just do docker-compose up-d, and that should do the magic, I think. It's installing on all the containers, it's downloading, and it's going to install it. Now note, this part should take a little bit of time, so I'll be back once it's on. So here, as you can see, the Docker container is now running, and I actually ran this other command, which Snikket tells you to run to create your first account. It gives you a nice little invite link. And we can just open the invite link here in the browser. And here we are. We can use any Jabber client, or we can just get the Snikket application. It's available on the Google Play Store, the Apple App Store, or the F-Droid. Or we can just register an account here online. So let's just give us a nice little username. So for me, it's going to be admin. Just use a nice little password. And we'll just hit create account. And we can just upload account data if you want to. And that's basically it. Now we can open any XMPP client and use XMPP as normal. Well, that's going to be it for this video. Hopefully it was helpful. If you have any doubts or problems, feel free to post them in the comments and I'll be happy to help you. See you guys next time. Until then, take care.